Right there, everyone. The government of India is instituting a powerful agenda of economic nationalism. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. You know, one of the areas of life that's obviously being affected by the rise of nationalist populism all over the world is, of course, transnational business and commerce, whether we're talking about President Trump's tariffs that he slapped on goods from the EU, Canada, Mexico, or China, or Poland's recent law that prohibits business transactions and requires shops to be closed on Sundays, or China's requirement for computer companies to design unique operating systems and CPUs to comply with their strict cybersecurity standards. The days of a one-size-fits-all economic system that's managed and operated by CEOs and elite regulators, which is then superimposed on all nations, irrespective of their unique customs, cultures, and traditions, those days are rapidly disappearing. And nowhere are we seeing this disruption of the globalist economy more than in India of late. And a big shout out to our good friend Daryl Dow for sending this over to me. Thanks so much, Daryl. A new set of commerce rules is taking effect that is severely limiting the extent to which massive corporations such as Amazon and its rival Flipkart can sell their products within the borders of India. Now, up until now, India has been instituting significant economic protectionist measures, such as requiring, I believe it's something akin to 30% of all products sold within India have to be manufactured domestically, right, by Indians and for Indians, as it were. But now they've begun to institute far more restrictive measures, effective February 1st, that prohibits foreign-owned e-commerce services such as Amazon and Flipkart to sell goods through affiliated companies, this according to the New York Times. So now businesses like Amazon, Walmart, they've all had to turn their individual sites in India basically into more or less wholesale distributors for Indian national merchants and retailers, which is turning them more into something like in eBay, which is more of a middleman company, right? eBay charges for services, but it doesn't actually sell anything itself. Now, what's interesting here is that the New York Times piece on this interviews a number of Indians who are absolutely supportive of this. You'll hear them saying things like this. We need to build domestic assets and domestic companies. We have to implement protections against a total onslaught of global corporations who care nothing about India's culture, customs, and traditions. They see such measures as essential to protecting small shopkeepers who embody the uniqueness of Indian culture and who would, of course, be run out of business by these global companies who could certainly give plenty of discounts, but absolutely no defense of what India considers worthy of preserving. Now, if you don't know, all of this economic protectionism is coming out of a massive shift to the nationalist right by India over the last several years. Back in 2014, what's called the Bharatiya Janata Party, it's the BJP. It's the right-wing party of India. They won the single largest democratic election in human history, actually. One of the things that we can often overlook when thinking about the current state of politics in the world is that the single largest political party in the world today, as we speak, by far, is a right-wing nationalist populist party. That might be a neat trivia question, by the way. The Bharatiya Janata Party of India is far and away the largest political party in the world, and it is a thoroughly nationalist, populist, and most especially Hindu traditionalist political party. And so the Bharatiya Janata Party, we'll just simply call it BJP here, became the leading party of the largest and most diverse democracy in the world and is overwhelmingly poised to win the upcoming national elections in May. So we have two big elections coming up in May, of course, the European Parliament elections and the national elections in India. If the BJP is as dominant in these upcoming elections as they were back in 2014, this right-wing party will be defining the political landscape in India for years to come. Now, just so you know, they did suffer a bit of a setback in their last regional elections. I think it was about a month or so back, if I recall. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here in the next few months. But now, at the heart of the BJP and its electoral success is its leader and the current Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. Now, Prime Minister Modi comes from thoroughly right-wing Hindu nationalist corners. He was a part of what's called the RSS, which is a Hindu nationalist group that explicitly seeks to reorganize the Indian nation society and culture around conservative Hindu beliefs and practices. And the RSS is considered the foundation of this Bharatiya Janata Party, this BJP, which is, as we've said, the largest political party on the planet. Now, Modi ran on a thoroughly nationalist and populist platform. He was firmly anti-establishment, anti-elite. He led a mass electoral rebellion against the center-left Indian National Congress Party, which is the more secular, more globalist party in India. And under Modi's tenure, India has moved in many ways decisively towards the Hindu nationalist right. Just to give you some examples here, the BJP has pushed for changing the names of Muslim streets to replace them with the names less offensive to Hindu nationalists. The party has changed Muslim names in textbooks, replacing them with their Hindu versions of those names. Their public school system is more and more adopting what's called Hindutva, which is a distinctively Hindu nationalist curriculum that involves prayers and hymns devoted to Hindu gods throughout the school day. And the BJP has forced colleges to cancel speaker invitations to anti-nationalist activists and demonstrators. Now, we're beginning to see a program of economic nationalism take effect through the nation. And again, for many, this is a very, very good thing. But globalists like the New York Times, they lament these developments, claiming that it's only going to hurt Indian citizens. When you have less choice of goods at a higher price, not only does that lend itself to inflation, but it severely restricts standards of living. Now, of course, I mean, this is a good point. But what I think India and many other nations are trying to do that globalists such as the New York Times have a hard time coming to terms with is simply that they're trying to keep globalism a servant rather than surrender themselves to globalism as a master. In other words, the BJP loves globalism as long as it's a servant to nation, culture, custom, and tradition. But the moment it becomes a master, it ends up destroying those things that are uniquely Indian and that represent and preserve a distinctively Indian vision of life. I think it was John Ralston Saul's book, The Collapse of Globalism, that made the point that globalism is unique in that it quite literally reduces everything to economics. While every other civilization-centered society in some kind of sacred tradition of one kind or another, globalists reduce the totality of social order to mere economic processes. Globalism, by its very nature, demotes the values, the ethical and moral and artistic values of a nation or people or community in favor of this one-size-fits-all economic system that's then superimposed upon all nations, cultures, customs, and traditions. And to hurt or question or damage or imperil the economy, this one-size-fits-all economic system, is the greatest crime a politician or public figure could be accused of doing. As long as we have low prices and high profits, endless options and controlled inflation, stagnant wages but strong consumer confidence, well, then damn everything else, right? That's globalization. And what we're seeing in India right now is a very deliberate attempt at relativizing globalization to the enduring power and propensity of sacred culture, custom, and tradition. So we'll certainly be keeping our eyes on how things develop in India, especially in light of their upcoming national elections in May. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Click on either our Patreon, subscribe star, Paypal links below, and become a supporter of this channel and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. God bless.